You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with the NBA. Two great games yesterday. Both of them ended up finishing as one-basket games. Great day yesterday for the NBA. And I'll start with Celtics Raptors. You remember how I said that you can't count on Marcus Smart to go off again? Well, idiot Jacob struck again. It turns out you can count on Marcus Smart to strike again. Now, for 3 quarters, I was right. He only had 3 points. But in 3 minutes, in the fourth quarter, Smart had 16 points. He finished with 19. He was the Celtics' second leading scorer. When Gordon Hayward got hurt, the Celtics lost 17 points per game. And everyone was thinking, okay, they're going to have to win games based on defense. Yes, Tatum will get his. Yes, Jaylen Brown will get his. Yes, Kemba Walker will get his. But they're not going to be able to replace that scoring. No one told Marcus Smart that. I mean, the Celtics were down by 8 headed into the fourth quarter. A lot of Raptors fans were thinking, okay, we're going to tie this series up right here. Smart wouldn't let him. He shot 6 for 11 from beyond the arc. This was a fantastic performance. And it's not like Hayward is out for the whole playoffs. He should be back during the conference finals. If you add Gordon Hayward to this Celtics team, the way that Smart is playing, they're unstoppable. They can beat the Bucks. They can beat the Heat. They'll run roughshod through the Eastern Conference. I don't think they do that well against the Lakers or Clippers, but the Eastern Conference, it's going to be child's play. And I haven't even talked about Jason Tatum dropping 34. You know, it kills me to say this because Tatum was picked with a Nets pick, or at least the Celtics were in position to pick him because of a Nets pick. But when we talk about exciting young NBA players, we talk about Luka, we talk about Giannis, we talk about Jamal Murray, we talk about Donovan Mitchell. Tatum needs to be mentioned also. He is the best player on the Celtics, and he's acting like it. I mean, he's torching a really good Raptors defense. I mean, seriously, you look at the Raptors, no one on that team is really terrible defensively. Tatum and the whole Celtics team are torching them. There's no other word for it. They're destroying them, mutilating them. If the Raptors are going to come back in this series, they have to tighten up defensively. It's just that simple. I talked about Marcus Smart going off, and he's more known for his defense. Well, there was another player that's more known for his defense who went off, and that was OG Anunoby. He was the high man for the Raptors yesterday with 20. If you score 20 points, you're doing something right. Fred VanVleet rebounded to have a good game. So did Siakam. Kyle Lowry had a good game. Serge Ibaka off the bench had a good game, as per usual. I mean, the thing that killed the Raptors yesterday was the fact that they couldn't hit a 3 to save their lives. Yes, Lowry and VanVleet had good games, but I can't look past the fact that Lowry went 0 for 7 from beyond the arc and VanVleet went 3 for 12 from beyond the arc. If both of them had hit just one more 3, that's it. Just one more 3, the Raptors win this game. I mean, the Raptors didn't shoot the ball well in Game 1. They only shot 37% from the field and 25% from beyond the arc. They were better in this game, but they still weren't great. 40% from the field, 28% from beyond the arc. Fred VanVleet has been atrocious from 3. In this series, he's 5 for 23. That's just a little over 20%. This is a guy who was killing the Nets from 3. He went 8 for 10 from beyond the arc in Game 1. And in Game 3, he went 6 for 10. Now, Game 2, he was only 3 for 11. So we saw glimpses of this. But I don't think anyone expected back-to-back atrocious 3-point shooting games from VanVleet. If he doesn't turn it around quickly, the Raptors are going home. It's just that simple. I give the Celtics credit for their perimeter defense. They've been really good there. But at the end of the day, the Raptors, namely VanVleet, have to shoot better. Speaking of teams that didn't shoot well, we had an old school Game 7 yesterday in the NBA. I mean, Jazz Nuggets, wow. You want to talk about 1980s basketball? Smash mouth basketball? Great defense? That's what this was. Everyone was focusing on the battle of Mitchell versus Murray. That's not what decided this game. What decided this game was Jokic versus Gobert. I mean, I'll tell you, I didn't see that coming. Neither team could put the ball in the ocean yesterday. The Jazz shot 38% from the field, 24% from beyond the arc, and they only hit 67% of their free throws. But the Nuggets weren't much better. 37% from the field, which is worse, 26% from beyond the arc. They hit the same number of threes as the Jazz did. They just did it in 3 less tries. They did do well from the charity stripe, though. 77%. They only missed 3 free throws. I'll take that. But this was just a dismal shooting performance. Joe Ingles, 3 for 10 from the field, 1 for 5 from beyond the arc. Donovan Mitchell, 2 for 8 from beyond the arc. Mike Conley, 2 for 13 from the field, 1 for 6 from beyond the arc. I mean, you're playing in a Game 7. You're trying to avoid blowing a 3-1 series lead and being the butt of about 50 million jokes. And that's the performance you put out there. I can't blame Quinn Snyder. This is on the players. Look, maybe Mitchell was just exhausted from carrying the team. I can accept that, but Joe Ingles really hasn't done anything this series. Mike Conley, I'm sorry, there's no excuse to shoot 2 for 13 from the field and 1 for 6 from beyond the arc. Even Jordan Clarkson off the bench, 1 for 5 from beyond the arc. What a dismal performance by the Jazz. And the sad thing for them is, the Nuggets weren't much better. Only Nikola Jokic really played well. Jokic dominated. He went 30 and 14. He was the only guy for the Nuggets to hit more than 1 3 in this game. The center is doing that. I understand that Jokic is a freak, and he can do that. But when you're playing in a Game 7, and that's the performance you put out there, that doesn't inspire confidence in me. In this Clippers-Nuggets series, I think the Clippers are going to steamroll the Nuggets. And what about the last 30 seconds or so of that game? I mean, if you weren't watching it, I don't know what you were doing. Nikola Jokic with this crazy Euro step type move to somehow hit a shot. I mean, Rudy Gobert defended it well. Gobert played great in this game. 19 points and 18 rebounds. He wasn't great defensively, but offensively, he was the Jazz's best player. In fact, he was their best player overall. The Jazz call a timeout to draw up a play after Quinn Snyder sees what defense they're in. They have trouble inbounding the ball, so the Jazz have to take another timeout. Then finally they're able to inbound the ball to Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt. He gets around Gary Harris. He's driving to the hoop. Harris recovers. Pokes the ball loose. I mean, just really fast. You want to talk about a redemption moment. Gary Harris was putrid in that game. He played 26 minutes. And he went 1 for 9 from the field. I like Gary Harris. I think he's a good player, bordering on really good. But he had a dreadful game up until the moment he stole the ball from Donovan Mitchell. Then Jamal Murray ends up with the ball, and I can just hear every single person in Denver, hold on to the ball! What are you doing? Stop sprinting! Just hold on to the ball! But Murray was pushing the issue. He dished it off to Torrey Craig, who missed a wide-open layup. Gobert gets the rebound, gets the ball to Mike Conley, who gets a clean look from 3. And it goes halfway in, and then rolls out. If you haven't seen that final sequence, check my Twitter, @RealJacobValk. I retweeted SportsCenter's tweet that showed a video of it. It's worth watching. That was the perfect summation of this game. Really, really poetic. Alright, now it's time to preview today's 2 games, and I will start with Heat Bucks. For the Heat, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep Jimmy Butler on Giannis. Let Butler go off. Let playoff Jimmy Butler do his thing. He clamped Giannis. He dropped 40. Keep getting Dragic involved. Keep getting Bam involved. And you've got this. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. As for the Bucks, Giannis needs a Giannis-type game. And I'm not talking about nearly getting a triple-double. I'm talking about going for 30. He has to be the best offensive player in this game for the Bucks to win. It's great that they got Chris Middleton cooking. It's great that they got Brook Lopez cooking. But I've said this before. The Bucks will only go as far as Giannis takes them. If Giannis has another below average offensive game, the Bucks are going to lose. It's just that simple. Moving on now to Thunder Rockets. And in a Game 7, you need your big guns to show up. That goes for both teams. For the Thunder, they need Paul to show up. They need Shea to show up. They need Schroeder to show up. Even Gallinari needs to show up. Let Steven Adams do his thing down low. Let Luguentz-Dort do his thing defensively. I don't want him having a good offensive game. If Luguentz-Dort only takes 3 shots in this game, I'm fine with that. He just has to focus all his attention on clamping James Harden. Their big guns need to take over, just like the Rockets. Big guns have to take over. Harden needs to go for 30. Russell Westbrook needs to get his head screwed on straight. Eric Gordon needs to keep up his good play. If the Rockets have an off night from Harden and or Westbrook, they will lose this game. They're not going to be able to compensate for an off night from one of them in a Game 7. They're just not. Maybe Jeff Green, but that's a tough ask. Green has not been great his last few games. That's why I said before, Jeff Green is an infuriating player. One game he looks great, the next game he looks terrible. Moving on now to Islanders Flyers. And they have an infuriating player in Barzell, but he had a really good game. He didn't have any moments that made me want to strangle him yesterday. That wasn't his fault. I mean, at the end of the day, the Flyers were just the better team yesterday. They dominated for most of the game. The third period, the Islanders woke up. And they came back from 2 goals down late. Huge goals by Nelson and Brassard. Less than 2 minutes apart. And yeah, everyone was thinking, okay, this is it. The Islanders are going to win it right here. Or they're going to win it in overtime. I even know some Rangers fans that were saying that. But give Alain Vigneault credit. He settled the troops down. He didn't let them fold. And Scott Lawton had a really good deflection on an Ivan Provorov shot. I mean, I really can't go crazy about this game. I didn't think the Islanders played bad. They weren't great. I've seen the Islanders play a lot better. At the end of the day, they gave up 4 goals. 3 in regulation. That's unacceptable for a Barry Trotz coached team. Especially this team. But I didn't think they got terribly outplayed. Yes, the Flyers were the better team overall, but it wasn't like a landslide or anything. This was just a case of the Flyers' big guns waking up. Claude Giroux woke up. JVR woke up. Travis Konechny woke up. At the end of the day, the Flyers were the better team. I can't get too upset about it. I mean, I'm really not that concerned, to tell you the truth. I know there are some Islanders fans that are really upset about this. They're getting concerned. I don't see this team losing 2 more games. I understand that Varlamov's performance left something to be desired. The defense wasn't good at all. But this is a really, really, really good Islanders team. Let's breathe. Let's calm down. Trotz is going to settle the troops down. They're still in the driver's seat. The Islanders need to win just 1 more game and that's it. The Flyers need to win 2. That's a tough ask against this Islanders team. And overall, the Islanders have been the much better team in this series. By far, it's not even close. Realize something, the Flyers needed overtime to win their 2 games. The Islanders didn't. I'm really not panicking here. Maybe you expected me to be nervous, but I'm really not. I'm not going to lie to you. This is a really, really, really good Islanders team. I think they're fine. I really do. Moving on now to Canucks Golden Knights. And I think I figured out why the Islanders really lost yesterday. It just hit me. The Canucks and Islanders switched places. All the Canucks traveled to Toronto to face the Flyers, and all the Islanders traveled to Edmonton to face the Golden Knights. That's the only way I can explain how the Canucks won this game. You remember how I said that Jacob Markstrom looked defeated? And I was concerned how he'd play yesterday? Travis Green didn't give him the opportunity. He started Thatcher Demko. Now, the reason I didn't bring up starting Demko was because, truthfully, I don't think Demko's that good. He really hasn't distinguished himself as a good goalie in this league to me. This year he went 13-10-2 with a .905 save percentage and a .306 goals against. That's not good. I thought the Canucks were going to be forced to start Markstrom, but hey, they started Demko, and Demko stood on his head. He made 42 saves. This was his first ever playoff start, and he only allowed 1 goal. This was a Herculean performance. There's no other word for it. Demko was simply phenomenal in this game. Or maybe it was Semyon Varlamov. I'm still waiting for the DNA results. And I'm definitely waiting for the DNA results on the Canucks skaters. What were the Canucks doing offensively? They couldn't get anything going. They only had 17 shots in the whole game. The Golden Knights, in the second period, had 18 shots. The Golden Knights outshot the Canucks for the whole game in 1 period. They finished with 43 shots. If you doubled the amount of shots that the Canucks had, they still wouldn't be close to where the Golden Knights were. This was an Islanders game. I mean, I've seen Islanders games like this, where they get nothing going offensively, but they convert on their 1 or 2 good opportunities. I mean, give Besser, Hughes, Miller, and Pettersson credit. They got on the score sheet, but the Canucks really did not play well. No one else played well for the Canucks, except the guys who I just mentioned. I'll include Chris Tanev there also. He was a +2. So, Demko, Besser, Pettersson, Miller, Hughes, and Tanev. Those are the only guys who played well for the Canucks. This really can't inspire a lot of confidence in you if you're a Canucks fan. I mean, phenomenal performance by Demko. Any praise he gets, he's earned. But this can't inspire a lot of confidence in you if you're a Canucks fan. If I was a Golden Knights fan, I wouldn't be panicking here. Also, one thing that's important to note, Markstrom didn't even dress. The Canucks scratched him because of a groin issue. Louis Domingue dressed as Demko's backup. A guy who epitomizes the term quadruple A goalie. There is one NHL game tonight. It is Avalanche Stars. For the Avalanche to win tonight and extend the series, they have to just keep up the pressure. Don't let up. Do not take your foot off the gas. The Avalanche got off to a blazing start in Game 5. I mean, they were up 5-0, but even more than that, they had 23 shots. Keep your foot on the gas, but leave enough in the tank so that you don't fade away in the third period. I don't see the Avalanche scoring 6 goals again. And the Avalanche did not play well in the third period. They got outshot 18-3. There was no chance that the Stars were going to come back, so it's possible that the Avalanche were just going with the motions, but needless to say, they're not going to be able to do that tonight. Also, tighten up on the power play. The Avalanche were 0 for 6 on the power play and still scored 6 goals. It's great that they scored 6 goals, but it's terrible that they went 0 for 6 on the power play. And they got out hit tremendously, 45-31. There's stuff to work on here if you're Jared Bednar. Be happy that they scored 6 goals, but they're not going to be able to do that again. Keep your foot on the gas. Don't let up no matter what. Convert on the power play, and don't let the Stars get the body on you. That's how the Avalanche are going to win. As for the Stars, they really need to go back to what got them here in the first place. And I'm not necessarily talking about starting Anton Khudobin. If they start Khudobin, I'm okay with that. If they start Bishop, I'm okay with that. If they even go with one of the 2 other goalies that they have in the bubble, Landon Bowe or Jake Edinger, I'm okay with that. But the Stars got in this position because they were a great defensive team. They allowed the second fewest goals in the NHL. They were not a good offensive team. They were the Western Conference version of the Islanders. The Stars have gotten away from that in this series. They've only allowed 2 goals or less once, and that was Game 2. Go back to what got you here in the first place, play defense-first hockey, and you'll convert on your quality opportunities that you'll inevitably get. Michael Hutchinson is not Patrick Waugh. Yes, he played well in Game 5, but you can get to him. And you got to him in Game 5. I mean, he gave up 3 goals. Get back to what got you here in the first place. Play defense-first hockey. Moving on now to football. And there were a couple huge extensions yesterday. I'll start with the Bengals locking up Joe Mixon for 4 more years at $48 million. And this is a great move for the Bengals. Mixon is a really talented player. He has back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He's a good pass-catching back, and he's young, too. He's 24 years old. Him and Joe Burrow are going to be great offensive anchors for the Bengals for a long time. And you combine them with A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins, the Bengals have something. They'll be okay this year. They're not going to be great. They're not going to make the playoffs or anything, but they'll get on the right track. And when you look at the contract itself, it's really the perfect value for him. The $12 million a year puts him in that upper echelon of top-paid running backs. It's McCaffrey, Elliott, Bell, David Johnson, and Derrick Henry. And then there's a big drop-off to guys like Kenyon Drake, Melvin Gordon, and Saquon Barkley. Obviously, Barkley hasn't gotten his big boy contract yet, but as it stands right now, that's the landscape of running back contracts. Mixon deserves to be in that group. Total value, he's just behind Derrick Henry. He blew by David Johnson. You can't have a problem with this move at all. Great move for the Bengals. They didn't overpay for him. It makes a ton of sense. It's nice to see that he's gotten his life back on track after that terrible thing he did when he was in college. He did punch a girl in the face, and it caused him to slide in the draft. I mean, look, a reprehensible action. But for the Bengals' sake, I'm glad that he's kept himself on the straight and narrow. Moving on now to the Lions locking up Taylor Decker for 4 years at $60 million. And this is another really good move. Ever since Decker entered the NFL out of OSU, he's been tremendously underrated. He's never had a Pro Football Focus grade worse than 65.3, and that was in his sophomore year in 2017, where he missed the first 8 games of the season because of an injury. You know, I can excuse that performance. He's not a great run blocker, but he's excellent in pass protection. Last year, his run blocking did get a lot better, and it resulted in an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 75.5. Every game he played in, he played every snap. He did miss their Week 2 game, but that was it. I don't mind that. This is a great move for the Lions. The contract is more than fair. It compensates him at a fair rate. Like I said, this is a great move. There was a trade yesterday in the NFL. It wasn't an earth-shattering one by any stretch. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It was David Sharp being traded by the Raiders, along with their 7th-round pick this year, to the Washington football team for their 6th-rounder this year. Sharp is a fine swing offensive tackle. Nothing great, nothing terrible. You don't want him starting. That's not going to end well. But Sharp does have familiarity with Washington's coaching staff. Jack Del Rio is their defensive coordinator. And He was head coach of the Raiders when they drafted Sharp. Sharp also played at FSU with Del Rio's son Luke, who is an offensive quality control coach for Washington. This is a fair price to pay for a good swing tackle. Because Washington got a pick in this deal also, I understand it's a 7th. They did downgrade a round, but they didn't lose a pick, and they got a solid swing tackle. I'm going to say that the Washington football team won this trade. There were a couple hockey stories besides the 2 playoff games yesterday, and I'll start with the Kings locking up Austin Wagner for 3 more years at an AAV of $1.133 million. So the total value of the contract is just under $3.4 million. Wagner looks like he's going to turn into a solid 3rd or 4th liner. There's nothing wrong with him. He plays the game the right way. Good defensively, solid offensively. This year he had 11 points in 65 games. The year before he had 21 points in 62 games. He's a good goal scorer. It makes a ton of sense to lock him up. Good young player at a fair price. Nothing wrong with this move at all. The other hockey story involves Bill Zito being hired as Panthers GM. And this is a really good move for the Panthers. Zito has been a pretty hot commodity for a while. He was with the Blue Jackets as their associate GM. And before that, he was an agent. So he has good relationships with players. And he went about this the right way. If you're an agent who's going to make the leap to being a GM, go in the front office as an assistant first. Learn the ropes. And then become a GM. Zito wasn't a known candidate for this job. This did come a little bit out of left field, but he's been a hot commodity for a while for other GM jobs. I think this is going to work out. I really, really do. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that the first thing they do in Cleveland, if you have any talent, is to trade you for 3 guys who don't.